This body cam footage from February 2019 shows a dozen male Chicago police officers storming into Anjanette Young's home on a Thursday night.
You got the wrong house. I live alone.
She was in the middle of changing her clothes after returning from a work event. Young says the officers left her naked and handcuffed for 40 minutes. They later learned that a police informant gave them a bad tip.
What are you looking for?
The person they were actually looking for lived next door and was wearing an electronic monitoring bracelet.
Yeah, man, relax. You telling me to relax and y'all don't tell me I'm my house like this?
City officials went to court to try to block this video from airing after Young and her attorney shared it with our Chicago station, WBBM.
Welcome to Straddled Events. On this channel, we bring you the truth. Sometimes the truth is quite ugly, unbearable, and you just don't want to deal with it. But on this channel, you're going to get it anyway. We deal with controversial and very highly opinionated topics. It is called Straddled Events because most people are one foot in and the other foot out. Meaning, you are straddling between the fence of good versus evil, right versus wrong. And on this channel, we're going to tell you to do better. Let's go.
What is wrong with you?
So that's where we are in this world today. That's how we living. You tried to block the video. You were at the wrong damn house. The person that you looking for had an ankle monitor on. You couldn't follow the ankle monitor to exactly where it was pinging from. And you didn't give this lady no apology as she stood there for 40 minutes naked. Shame on you, Chicago mayor. Your ass need to step down because you are so no good, Miss Lori Lightfoot. I mean, you're just a piece of work. It's time for you to go. Y'all better vote her out of there because she is no good for Chicago. None whatsoever. That police department is corrupt and not one of those officers were charged for anything, suspended or nothing, after they humiliated this woman. For 40 minutes she stood there naked. This don't make no sense at all. Do better next time. Hey.
What is wrong with you?
An update on a Chicago woman who was targeted by a botched police raid. She is speaking out for the very first time since the city approved a $2.9 million settlement with her recently. A warning about this video of the raid is extremely upsetting. This body cam footage from 2019 shows police officers breaking down Anjanette Young's door while she was in the middle of changing her clothes. The officers left this innocent woman naked and handcuffed for a very long period of time. She repeatedly asked to get dressed and told them they were at the wrong address. We spoke with Young about the experience yesterday, but first, let's take a look back at what happened that night. This body cam footage from February 2019 shows a dozen male Chicago police officers storming into Anjanette Young's home on a Thursday night.
You got the wrong house. I live alone.
She was in the middle of changing her clothes after returning from a work event. Young says the officers left her naked and handcuffed for 40 minutes. They later learned that a police informant gave them a bad tip.
What are you looking for?
The person they were actually looking for lived next door and was wearing an electronic monitoring bracelet.
Yeah, man, relax. You telling me to relax and y'all don't tell me I'm my house like this?
City officials went to court to try to block this video from airing after Young and her attorney shared it with our Chicago station, WBBM.
This incident happened before I was mayor, but it's coming to light as I am mayor, and I have a responsibility to address this issue.
Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot initially denied knowing what happened to Young, but later admitted she had been briefed on the incident in November 2019. A third-party investigation ordered by Lightfoot found failures in oversight and accountability by multiple city agencies, but determined that the mayor and the city did not purposefully conceal information about the botched raid. Now, a newly released summary of a scathing report by Chicago's Inspector General finds the city did work to prevent Young from obtaining body cam video, and that it prioritized communications and public relations concerns over the higher mission of city government. Mayor Lightfoot says she does not agree with that conclusion.
This is not right. This is so not right.
An oversight agency has recommended that 8 of the officers involved in the incident be suspended or fired. So far, none of them have. And Anjanette Young now joins us in the studio. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I remember, Anjanette, when I first saw that video, it made me so angry and it made me so sad because I could hear the fear and I could hear the pain in your voice. As you look at it again, what do you remember about that night?
Watching that video is always hard because it just takes me back to that moment. And one thing that stands out the most to me as I think about this and live through this over the years is how vulnerable I was in that moment.
What were you doing at the time when the police officers broke through the door? What were you doing?
I was getting undressed, and the fact that I continued to ask if I could get dressed, I continued to ask them if I could call someone. What stands out to me most is that I was invisible to them. Because no one even responded to me saying, yes, you can get dressed later, or let us finish this. Like, they just totally ignored me.
While you're standing there nude?
While I'm standing there nude.
And pleading?
Yes.
How has this experience affected you now?
So I tell people that I didn't lose my life that night, but I lost a lot of my life that night.
At some point, did you think you could lose your life?
I actually thought that if I had done anything different than what I was doing, I would have died that night. They yelled, put your hands up, and that's what I did. And I stood there in fear and praying and hoping that they would not shoot me.
Last month, the city approved a $2.9 million settlement for you. Is that justice to you? Because I could see some people looking at this and saying, well, at least she got paid.
The money is not justice. And I never went into this when I started the legal proceedings. I never went in looking for money.
What were you looking for?
When I hired my attorney, I immediately told him that I wanted them all fired. And I say that because in any other profession, if you go to work and you harm someone in this type of way, you lose your job. As a social worker, if I go to work and I harm a client, I will lose my job, I will lose my license.
Just last week, the Chicago Office of Inspector General released a summary of the report, and the summary says that the city did, in fact, mishandle your case across the board.
So it's validating for me that over the last 3 years, I've been saying that. I've been saying that this is not right, but it doesn't add to justice because they need to make changes in policy. They need to make cultural changes in the way that the police department operates, and they need to get rid of some old boys that are in there training new people to operate in this way.
You say cultural changes. Do you think the fact that you are a person, that you are a black woman, do you think that played a role in this?
I absolutely think it played a role in it.
Why?
So not so much that I'm a black woman, but that my skin color is different from all of the men who were in that room that night. And that validates to me that they had no concern or passion for people and families of color. And they've done this to other families, primarily in the black and brown communities. What happened to me does not happen in the white affluent communities in Chicago.
You know, and listen, the only reason why we're even seeing this tape is because you had to go to court to get the tape.
Yes.
You fought to have this tape released.
Yes.
Do you regret that so many of us have seen you at your most vulnerable time?
I do not.
You don't.
It was a very hard decision to agree to allow this to be played, yes. But it was very necessary in the sense that at the point that we actually were able to get the body cam footage after many attempts of not being able to get it, it was necessary because at that point for me, it was about, I need to expose what's happening here.
You know, the mayor hired a private firm to investigate the case, and they came to the conclusion that the mayor's office didn't have malicious intent in the response to the case, and they did not deliberately conceal any information. What are your thoughts about that?
They did a public showing of their results. And the entire time, I was in tears watching them stand before the public and say that they did nothing wrong. When everyone knows that they hid the information initially and then went to court to try to ban CBS 2 Chicago from airing it. The mayor lied continuously that entire week when the video came out, only later to retract her information. So how do you not call that intent?
When do you think you will finally feel at peace?
I don't ever think that this will go away. I'm choosing to find ways to live on purpose and not allow this one incident to define me for the rest of my life.
Has the money changed your life?
No.
No.
No. The money is almost an insult in the sense that it's saying, okay, this is what we value that situation to be, and so here's some money to help you with that. And even the mayor said, you know, this amount of money will allow her to have resources to take care of herself. There's no amount of money that will right this wrong. I'm not a very flashy person. I really do enjoy living a simple life where I go about my day as a social worker, and I find joy in helping other people. So I would definitely be using this money for that cause to help other people. I would have been more satisfied if all 12 officers had got fired and I didn't receive a dime.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. You would think the money would bring her some comfort, and she says she wants to use it to help other people. She's a social worker by training. Tony and I, we both noticed the same thing on the wall where it says faith, hope, and love.
Yeah.
She really is that type of person. She says she now suffers from PTSD. She's easily triggered by loud things. I'm happy to say she no longer lives in that apartment, but she's not been able to go back to work because she says mentally she's not ready, and she goes to therapy every Wednesday. Every Wednesday like clockwork to help her get through this. And that was in 2019.
I was noticing the faith, hope, love, and the other knickknacks. There's a drawing from some child in her life because it reminds everybody out there that you may not know her, but you know this person.
Yes.
She's a very familiar person in our lives. And you have to ask yourself, what led to this happening from the police perspective, and how can it never happen again? Like, these sorts of mistakes need to be prevented at the root. We need to find that root.
For a lot of people, their worst fear is being naked in front of someone.
Exactly.
And she stood there nude
for
in front
40
of men,
minutes, yes.
ignored her
Yes.
as she was exposed. There is this poetic justice in her strength saying, release the tape.
Yeah.
Release the I want
Yeah.
people to see me
Yeah.
at
She
my
said she
roster.
thought about it, Nate.
And now
thought
she
about that.
has the police in Chicago exposed, just like she was.
You know, the thing
Yeah.
is, nobody from the police department has ever apologized to her.
Wow.